How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chav Zayin, Daf 27 of Masechta Sanhedrin. Friends, your friends. Alright. Daf Chav Zayin is pretty cool, I would say. I'd say it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think we gotta use our brains a little bit. But it's good. There's some good sugyas here. We're going to have two instances of Yal Kigam where we paskin like Abaye, right? There's only 6 places in Shas where we paskin like Abaye over Rava. And 2 of them are on today's daf. Interesting sugyas of Eitzomul Mafreu Nifsal, Mekanu Lahabu Nifsal, Mumar Ochel Nevelis Teyavon, Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis. Some real good stuff here. We're going to get to the next Mishnah. Chevre, let me tell you about the next Mishnah. We're not going to do it today. Sanhedrin Vomis. Big time. Tomorrow, Chevre, pace yourselves for tomorrow. Get a good night's sleep tonight, I'll tell you that much. I'm going to try to get through all of the Sanhedrin Vomis tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a rough one. Alright, here we go. It's the morning now. It's about 5 in the morning, I think. So I have coffee over here, my sidekick. Azoy. Okay. Here we go. We're going to start mamish the last word of Chavav Mud Beis, and then, so pretty much we're starting at the top of Chav Zayin Mud Aleph. Itmar, okay, now we're in Chav Zayin Mud Aleph. Eitzom Abayam El Mafreu Nifsal, V'Rav Amel Mikanu Lahabu Nifsal. Azoy. Abayam El Mafreu Nifsal, Meidna de Asid Roshu, V'Atar Amar Atoshis Yodchim Rosha, Atoshis Rosha Eid. Rav Amel Mikanu Lahabu Nifsal, Eitzom Chidishu Mai, Chaz Smachta Ani, Smach Ani. Okay. The shaila is Eitzomim L'Mafreya Unifsal or Mikan Ulahaba Unifsal. Who could tell me what that means? What that means is, say you have these 2 witnesses who testify about something in Nisan, and it's only 6 months later in Tishrei that other witnesses come and say Manu Yisef Makom Ploni and make them Eidim Zomim. The shaila is, what about that interim? In the meantime, they've been witnesses on other documents and things like that. So do we say L'Mafreu, and if so, like Abaye says, do we say that when in Tishrei, 6 months later, other witnesses come and say Manu Yisef Makom Ploni and make them Eidim Zomim, do we say, well, they're Eidim Zomim retroactively from the time of this testimony that they gave back in Nisan, and therefore anything that they saw, any documents that they attested to subsequently during this 6-month period are all retroactively invalid because they were, the witnesses were apostle witnesses from the time of their initial testimony in Nisan? Or do we say Mikanu Lahabu Nifsal, like Rave, that they become apostle from the time that from the moments of the second witnesses claiming Imanu Yisef and Malcolm Ploni, making them Eidim Zomim, i.e. only from Tishrei forward, but any testimonies between Nisan and Tishrei would be valid. We do not invalidate, would not disqualify them retroactively, only from this point and on. That's Rava's opinion. So, back in the Gemara, Itmar, it was stated from the beginning, Eid Zomim, when it comes to an Eid Zomim, so for example, if they testified in Nisan, but only became Eidim Zomim 6 months later in Tishrei, Abaye says retroactively an Eid Zomim is possible, and therefore any testimony that they testified about since Nisan is retroactively invalid. Whereas Rava argues, Mikanu La'aba Hu Nifsal, and Rava says only from this point onwards is he possible. Only this point onwards is he possible, and any documents in the interim would be valid. Abaye Amar L'Mafreu Nifsal. So now explaining Abaye's rationale of why he says that an Eid Zomim is retroactively possible, Me'idna de Asid, because from the time that they testified their false testimony, it's at that moment in time that they become shmendriks. Roshu, so from that point, they are a shmendrik. V'atorah Amra, and the Torah says, Al toshes yodcha im Rasha, do not join together with a shmendrik. Al toshes Rasha Eid, a shmendrik cannot be a witness. Right? From the time that they gave that false testimony, they are a Rasha, they are an evil individual, and they cannot be a witness, and therefore any testimony that they provided as a Rasha, i.e., from the time they became a Rasha back in Nisan, any subsequent testimony is invalid. I'm going to drink a little bit of coffee. Excuse me. Gewaldig. Rave Omer says, Rave, Mikanu lahabu unifsol, whereas Rave explains that, we explain the rationale for Rave, who says that only from Tishrei and onwards, from the time of Yimanu Yisem Makom Ploni and onwards, only from that point do they become invalid, but any testimonies in the interim, since Nisan, between Nisan and Tishrei, would be valid. The reason is because the whole Inyan, this is important to keep in mind as we learn Eidim Zomim Sugyas. It's interesting, Eidim Zomim has not, we've obviously been learning Babylon Talmud for 5 years now. Eidim Zomim has not come up that much, but I think it does come, as we've seen already, it's come up a bunch in Sanhedrin already. I think it comes up a bunch in the Sanhedrin. Makis also, we're going to be engaging with Eidim Zomim, I think, relatively regularly for the next few months. So as we engage with Eidim Zomim over the next few months, so we should keep in mind that the whole concept of Eidim Zomim is a chiddush. How come it's a chiddush? What's so novel about it? Because my chozis, dismachta ahanis mechani, it's 2 against 2. Trey v'trey. Right? You have one pair of witnesses comes and they give their testimony. Another pair of witnesses comes and says, oh, these guys are liars. Right? Mano Yisem Makom Ploni. All of a sudden, we say, okay, fine, we trust them. Why? 1 second. The first pair of witnesses should be able to say, wait a second. What makes them any better than us? We're saying, we're giving testimony. They're saying that we're a bunch of liars. Why are you trusting them? Maybe they're the liars. We're the ones telling the truth. Right? The defendant saw that he's in trouble, so he convinced these 2 witnesses to come and say, Imanu Yisem Makom Ploni, just so that he can get out of trouble. Why trust them? Trust us, would argue the first witnesses. Right? So the fact that we just automatically trust the second pair against the first pair, there's no logical reason for that. That's just the way it is. It's a chiddush. It's a novelty. So since the whole concept of Eidim Zomim is a chiddush, so therefore, only from the time that this novelty occurs, i.e. in Tishrei, at the time of Imanu Yisem Makom Ploni, only from that point on do we consider the first pair to be invalid. Alternatively, there are those who say that Rava actually in principle agrees with Abaye that from the time that they gave their testimony back in Nisan, from that point on, they are Rishoim. And therefore, Atashis Rasha Eid. Right? They can't give testimony, and therefore, in principle, any testimony that they gave from Nisan, when they gave what we're considering to be false testimony, should in principle be invalid. However, Umaitam, so then how come Rava is saying only Mikanu Lahaba, only from Tishrei onwards, not back from Nisan? Because Mishum Pseda de Lekuchis, out of concern for the Lekuchis. Out of concern that, in the interim, meaning what happened? They gave testimony in Nisan. 6 months later in Tishrei, other witnesses come and say, Mano Yisef Makom Ploni. In the interim, they've been, signing on documents that somebody bought a house, somebody this to that, whatever it might be. Now all of a sudden people are finding that their documents are invalid. They're losing their properties, losing their houses, losing their shirts. So out of concern for them, we say, look, we're not going to invalidate everything retroactively, only from the time of Imanu Yisef Makom Ploni, only from Tishrei onwards. My benai, what's the nafkamina between the two opinions of Rava? One of them being that Eidim Zomim is a Chiddush, the other one being that we're concerned for the loss of the Lekuchis. Well, if we can have a scenario where they're invalidated in a way that isn't a Chiddush, well, that would be an nafkamina. For example, Ikabenayu, one example is Dasidu Beitrei B'chad V'trei B'chad. What happened, right? What if two witnesses, right? So let's say you have the first pair of witnesses was Reuven and Shimon. So now you have two witnesses come and testify about Reuven, and they say Imanu Yisef Makom Ploni, and then another two witnesses come and testify about Shimon, Imanu Yisef Makom Ploni. All of a sudden, it's not such a chiddush. It's not 2 against 2. It's 2 against 1 in each instance. So it's not a chiddush. Of course, we're going to trust 2 against 1. 1 second. Yeah, exactly. So it's not a chiddush anymore because you have 2 against 1. It's not 2 against 2. So you have 2 against 1, another 2 against 1. So in that case, it's not a chiddush, but we still do have to be concerned about the lekuchis. Anybody who they testify for in the interim. Inami, alternatively, the paslinu b'gazanusa. Or what if they didn't make them eidim zomimin, but rather they basically, these other witnesses prove that they're thieves and therefore they're invalid witnesses. So in that case, this isn't a chiddush, but again, still we'd have to be concerned about anything that they signed in the interim. Okay. Alright. Okay. Fine. Right. So Zash says, so if they are proved to be thieves back from Nisan, so the right? So meaning it's not a chiddush because they basically proved to be invalid witnesses. But the question is, so if you're concerned about, so meaning in Tishrei, witnesses are coming and saying back in Nisan they stole and therefore they're invalid witnesses. So it's no chiddush that we believe them. They're proving that these are thieves. They can't be trusted. But now if we go back retroactively and passel everything that they're associated with since Nisan, so then the lekuchas are going to lose out. So again, that's an example where it's no longer a chiddush, but we would have to be concerned about any interim testimonies. That Rav Papi paskins like Rava that mikanu lahaba hu nifsal. Where my Rav Ashi Omer Alocha Ilchsat Kavosed Abaye, whereas my Rav Ashi says that Alocha is like Abaye, Ve'ilchsat Kavosed Abaye Bial Kegam, and of course the Alocha follows the opinion of Abaye when in 6 cases, which is represented by the acronym Ya'al Kegam, 2 of those examples being on this page, the ayin being Eid Zomim L'Mafreyu Nifsal, and the mem being what, if you look at the next word of the Gemara, it is mumar, right, which stands for mumar ochel nevelos lehachis, which we are going to proceed to in just a second after I take another shluck of coffee. Here we go. Now moving on to the concept of mumar ochel nevelos, and there's 2 types of mumars. There's mumar ochel nevelos lete'ovin and mumar ochel nevelis lehachis. So you have a person who eats nevelis. You have a person, whatever he eats, he does averis. He eats nevelis. He eats treif. Improperly slaughtered meat. The shaila is why is he eating nevelis? There could be one of 2 options that we entertain. One is the te'ovin. He Pashat can't resist. Pashat can't resist. He has such a big taiva for nevela, and his taiva is so strong that even though he knows that he shouldn't be eating nevela, he just can't resist, and he eats nevela. That's mumar ochel nevelos the te'ovin because he has a taiva for it. Now everyone agrees, as we're about to see, that in that scenario he cannot be trusted as a witness because if somebody comes and gives him a deal he can't refuse, let's say it's money, right? Here's $1 million, testify what we want. He can't resist. He can't control himself. His taivas are stronger than his ability to resist them. And therefore, a person who's a mumar ochel nevelis l'teyavon cannot be trusted as a witness, because he could be too easily swayed, and we can't trust that if he's coming and he's testifying about something, how do we know that maybe he's lying and somebody just gave him paid him off or gave him some kind of deal to and now he's saying whatever that person wants, bent him to their will. Yeah. The other option is mumar ochel nevelis lehachis. The other option is that, look, it's on principle. This fellow, he's upset with the Ribono Shel Olam. I don't know why. He felt that the Ribono Shel Olam did not have his best interests in mind, and he's broigus with the Ribono Shel Olam. So he says, Ribono Shel Olam, I'm broigus, I'm eating nevelis. I don't even like nevelis, but it's just to prove to you, to show you that I'm broigus with you. You don't want me to eat nevelis? Well, I didn't want you to do what you did. You didn't do what I want. I'm not doing what you want. I'm eating nevelis. On principle. It's not because he loves it. Not because anybody's paying him to do it. He's upset with the Ribono Shel Olam. So the shaila now is, can he be a witness? Can he be a witness? Do we need that the violation that he did is specifically in a monetary context, that he has some kind of a desire for money that he can't resist, right? However, if he does something lahachis, just on principle, well then there's no indication that he would be a dishonest witness. Or do we say, look, if you sin, you can't be a witness. So that's be'etzem, so that's going to be our discussion for the rest of the daf. It's an interesting discussion, in my opinion. Mumar ochel nevelis l'teyavon, says the Gemara. So if you have a person who eats nevelis because he can't resist, he must have nevelis. Tiviyakol posel, everyone agrees he's posel eidus. He can't be a witness because we have a real concern that he could be swayed. That if you touch the right nerve, you offer him enough money or whatever it might be, he won't be able to resist and he'll say whatever you want him to say. We can't trust him. Lahachis, but what if he's mumar ochel nevelis lahachis? What if he is eating nevelis not because he has a taiva for nevelis, but because he's upset with the Ribono Shel Olam? Purely ben adam lamakom. He's upset with the Ribono Shel Olam. So, Abaye Omer Posel, Rav Omer Kosher. Abaye says, Mumar ochel nevelis lehachis is Posel le'edus. Rav says he's kosher le'edus. Abaye Omer Posel. Abaye says he's Posel le'edus davle Rasha. Because a Mumar ochel nevelis lehachis, he's eating nevela. He's a shmendrik, he's a Rasha. V'achman Omer atoshis Rasha. And the Torah says, a Rasha cannot be a witness. A Rasha cannot be a witness. Okay, Azoi, right? Atoshis Rasha Eid. A Rasha can't be a witness. He's eating nevelis. He's a Rasha. He can't be a witness. V'Rava Amar Kosher, Rasha D'Chamos Ba'inun. Rava says no. Mumar ochel nevelis lahachis is a kosher witness because that pasuk says, right, Atoshis Yodcha Im Rasha Lios Eid Chamos. Right, you can't don't join together with the Rasha to be an aid chamos. Chamos is financial, a thief, somebody whose violation is regards financial violations, or that we're concerned about financial violations, or that he might so he steals something because he must have it, he can't resist, and also right we're concerned that you could pay him off, that he has taivas, that he won't be able to resist. But lahachis, if he sins on principle, unrelated to any kind of financial concern, well then it's not a violation of Rasha D'Chamos, and he could still be a witness. Meisvei we have a question on Rava. Atoshis Rosha Eid, Atoshis Chomosh Eid. Okay. We have a brisa that says, okay, so we have Atoshis Rosha Eid, that a Rosha cannot be a witness. Atoshis Chomos Eid, somebody involved in Hamas, in theft, in financial, monetary violations cannot be a witness. Elu Gazlonin, this is a reference to thieves, okay. Ume'alim b'shvuis, and people who, let's say, violate or are in violations of the laws of oaths. Now, shvuis is plural. So, it sounds like we're dealing with multiple kinds of oaths. My love, echad shvuas shav, echad shvuas mammon. Not only is it reference to shvuas mammon, of violating financial oaths, okay, but even shvuas shav. The Mishnah in Shavuos defines the Shavuos shav in several ways, but for example, if he swears that stone is gold, I mean, obviously stone isn't gold. Now that's not a financial, it's not like a financial thing, he's just being a shmendrik. And it sounds like we're saying that, simply violating a Shavuos shav, which is nothing to do with Rosh Hashanah, nothing to do with money, would make you an invalid witness. So it's a kasha on Rav who says we specifically need Rosh Hashanah, whereas this seems to be unrelated to any financial kind of stuff. And we're still saying that he's a apostle witness, so it sounds like Abaye. Lo, nit, idi v'idi shvuas mammon. No. When it says echad shvuas, where am I? Where it says elu gazon u'may'alim b'shvuas, shvuas doesn't mean different kinds of swears, meaning shvuas shav and shvuas mammon. No, it means idu v'idu shvuas mammon. It's talking about only shvuas mammon. That if you're in violation of shvuas mammon, then you're apostle witness. Umay shvuas the am. So why is it saying shvuas plural? But it's saying shvuas in general. Shvuas in general, oaths in general. But it's not saying different kinds of oaths. It's not saying shvuas shav and shvuas mammon. No, it's only shvuas mammon. But it's saying shvuas in general. Meisvei. We have a kasha this time on Abaye. Atoshis Rosha Eid, Atoshis Chomos Eid, Elu Gazlonin U'Mavei Ribius. This refers to Gazlonin, thieves, and those who lend with ribis, both examples of financial violations, which would be in support of Rava, who says we specifically need Rosh Hashanah. Here we're saying specifically financial violations. However, something like a mumar ochel nevelos lahachis, where he's doing it because he's upset with Hashem, that has nothing to do with financial, and you could still be a valid witness. Tiyuvta dabai tiyuvta, and that is a kasha. Here we have a brisa that poses a kasha on Abaye. Now says the Gemara, nemi ketanoi. Let's say that this machloikes between Abaye and Rava about mumar ochel nevelos lahachis, whether he's a kosher aid like Abaye or apostle aid like Rava. No, fakir. Whether he's a apostle aid like Abaye or he's a kosher aid like Rava. When it comes to mumar ochel nevelos lahachis, let's say it's taka machloikes tanoim. Eid zomim, excuse me, rub my eye. My mom does not get an apology for rubbing my eye. I don't do that often enough yet. Name ketanoi eid zomim posel l'chol Torah kula divrei Meir. Rabbi Yossi Omer b'med v'umurim shehu suzam b'dinin nefashos v'b'dinin mamres kosher b'dinin nefashos azoi. So we have a machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi with regard to an eid zomim. Again, what does it say? Where am I? I knew I was going to lose a place. Name ketanoi eid zomim. So if you have an eid zomim, regardless if this person became an eid zomim for financial, right, dinei mominus, whether it's dinei nefashos, makes no difference. Even if he becomes an eid zomim by dinei mominus, he cannot testify for dinei nefashos. We don't say, well, okay, he became an eid zomim by dinei mominus, but dinei nefashos is a different league. He's not going to testify against somebody to kill him. According to Meir, it makes no difference. If you're an eid zomim by dinei mominus, you're out. You can no longer be a witness anymore, not for dinei mominus, not for dinei nefashos. However, Rabbi Yossi says there is a distinction. Look, if you become an eid zomim by dinei nefashos, you mamish have, you're scum. You're literally going to testify against somebody to put them to death. You can't be trusted for absolutely anything. And therefore, if you're a eid zomim by dinei nefashis, you can't be trusted for anything. Obviously not nefashis, not mominus, nothing. But Rabbi Yossi says if you become an Eidzom by Dini mominus, you could still be trusted as a witness for Dini nefashis, because that's like next level. That's like next level, right? Okay, maybe you'll testify against somebody when it comes to $1,000, but you won't testify against somebody to say Chayiv Misa. That's next level. So again, when it comes to Eidzomim, Pasul l'chol Torah kula divrei Meir. So Meir says, look, once you become an Eidzom, even if it's only Dinei Mominus, you're out. You can't be a witness for anything. Pasul l'chol Torah kula, for anything in the Torah, you can't be a witness for anything. Rabbi Yossi Omer, whereas Rabbi Yossi says, when do we say that he's Pasul l'chol Torah kula, shuzam Dinei nefashis? If you became an Eidzomim when it comes to Dinei nefashis, if you're an Eidzom by Dinei nefashis, that's it. You have no red lines. You can't be trusted for anything. Aval, who's in B'Dinei Mominus, kosher Dinei nefashis. But if you become an Eidzomim by Dinei Mominus, there's still hope that we could trust you for Dinei nefashis because you won't testify that somebody's Chayiv Misa. That's an order of magnitude more severe. So let's say that Abaye, who's like more stringent and more blanket, and who says that Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lehachis is Pasul Eidus, even though it's only Lehachis, he's still Pasul Eidus, is like Reb Meir, who says that even if he's only an Eidzom by Dinei Mominus, he's Pasul Chol Torah Kula. And Rava is more selective and says that Mumar Och Nevelis Lehachis is kosher Le'edus, would be like Rabbi Yossi, who's more selective and says that you can have somebody who's in Eidzom by Mominus but could still be kosher for Nefashis. Right? Where am I? So name Abai Kreb Meir, Ve Rava Kreb Yossi, Abai Kreb Meir, Domar Minon Mikula Lechumra, that Abai is like Reb Meir, that we can even apply from Kula Lechumra, right? Reb Meir says that in Eid Zomim by Dinei Mominus, which is more lenient than Dinei Nefashis, still, even though he's only in Eid Zomim by Dinei Mominus, he becomes Pasul Chol Torah Kula, he can't testify even for Dinei Nefashis. That's similar to Abaye, who says that by Mumar Lehachis, right, that if he's a Mumar Och Nevelis Lehachis, which is only Ben Adam, which is strictly Ben Adam Lamakum, it's because he has a vendetta. I don't really know what a vendetta is, but I feel like it makes sense in this context. He has vendetta with God. Does that make sense? I hope so. He's Broigus. He's Broigus with the Eibishter. So it's Ben Adam Lamakum, and still Abaye says that he's Pasul Le'edus. He can't testify about somebody else, which is Ben Adam Lachavero, which is more significant. Right? Meaning Ben Adam Lamakum is just between him and God. Ben Adam Lachavero is not just, it involves him and God because it's in violation of Torah, but also in violation of Ben Adam Lachavero as well. So that's more significant. So let's say that let's say that Abai is like Reb Meir, that Reb Meir who says Mikula L'chumra, that if you're an Eidzom by Dinei Mominus, you pass over Dinei Nefashis. It's like Abai who says that if you are a Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis, which is Ben Adam La Makom, you're also possible for Eidus, which is Ben Adam Lachaveru. V'Rava Damar Reb Yossi, and Rava says is like Reb Yossi, Damar Mechumra Lekula Aminon Mikula Chumra Lo Aminon. That Reb Yossi says, look, we'll say from Chumra Lekula that if you're an Eid Zomim by Dinei Nefashis, which is severe, so then you're possible for everything, including Dinei Mominus. But if you're pasul for a witness by Dinei Mominus, which is more lenient, we would not make you pasul for Dinei Nefashis. And that's like Rava. It's a Rava would be in line with that, because Rava says, look, if you're a Mumar Ochel Nevelis L'Teyovin, where basically, you can be swayed to do anything, so then, of course, you're pasul, but the lahachis, which is more limited in scope, and it's purely ben adam lamakom, and we don't really have a concern about ben adam lachavero. So Rava would say that you could still be a kosher witness. Where am I? So mikul l'chumra lo aminan lo. So we say nit. Look, Rabbi Yossi kulam lo plige. Okay, look, when it comes to Rabbi Yossi's opinion, right, Rabbi Yossi sort of makes this distinction. Everyone agrees that Abaye can't shtim with Rabbi Yossi, and that's going to have to be, right, so Rava would align with Rabbi Yossi. The question is, with regard to Rabbi Meir, do we say strictly that it's only Abaye who's in line with Rabbi Meir? Maybe we could say that Rava would argue that Rabbi Meir would agree with him that Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis would be kosher Lahoid. Kipliga Alibid Rabbi Meir, we can argue when it comes to Rabbi Meir, Abaye Rabbi Meir, obviously Abaye, who says that Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis is Posel Laedus, would be the one who would align with Rabbi Meir, who says that being in Eid Zom by Dinim Mominus would make him possible also with Dinim Nefashos. But Rava would respond and say that Rabbi Meir would agree with his position, with Rava's position, that Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis would be kosher Lehoid. Because Adkan Lokam Rabbi Meir Hossam, when Rabbi Meir says that an Eid Zom by Dinim Mominus is possible for Dinim Nefashos, that's because he is showing a lack of ability to be trusted by Ben Adam lachaveru. He's a shmendrik lashamayim v'labrios. When he's in Eid Zomim by Mominus, he's showing, right, it's Ben Adam lachaveru. It's showing not only is he in violation of the Torah, Ben Adam lamakom, but also he shows a violation of Ben Adam HaChaveru. He's testifying falsely against a friend. So Rabbi Meir says, look, an Eid Zom by Dinei Mominus can't be trusted at all. He's Ra Shamayim, Ra Brios, he's rotten to the core, can't be trusted by Dinei Mominus, can't be trusted by Dinei Nefashos. Aval Hacha, but Rava would argue that Rabbi Meir would say that by Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis, which is strictly Ben Adam Lamakom, but there's no implication for Ben Adam HaChaveru, Ra Shamayim ve'em Ra Brios, lo. Rabbi Meir would not disqualify a Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis, argues Rava. And we pass in like Abaye. We pass in like Abaye that Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis is possible Eidus. Very tosif. But didn't we bring a brisa earlier that we said tiyufta, the Abaye tiyufta? Why would we paskin? Is that, I feel like in the Gemara sometimes it says like tiyufta v'hilchasa? I feel like that's a thing that comes up sometimes in the Gemara, but I can't. Yeah, I feel like that comes up. Anyways, that's whatever it is, it's the same idea. That I don't understand, how could we, after having said tiyufta the Abaye tiyufta, how could we just say v'hilchasa ka'Abaye? That we paskin like Abaye, Vayitosiv. We asked, didn't we, ask a kasha on him from a brisa? Hahi Rabbi Yossi. Well, that brisa, which said that only Rosh Dechamos is apostle le'edus, right? But that Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis would be kosher le'edus. That is Rabbi Yossi, who says even Mechumer Lekula is possible. Wait, what? Who says, that only Meikula L'chumra is possible, but only Meikula L'kula is possible, but Meikula L'chumra is kosher. So that price is like Rabbi Yossi. So I eat Rabbi Yossi. So that's specifically Rabbi Yossi, it's a das yochid. It's only the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, that price, and therefore don't ask me kasha from that price, it's only Rabbi Yossi's opinion. But Rabbi Yossi, but the Gemara says, as we know, already for ages and ages, since we learned Daf Memvav Masechta Eruvin, we know that when you have machlok, we always pass on Rabbi Yossi nimuka imo. Machlok Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi, pass on Rabbi Yossi. So therefore, right, if we have Rabbi Meir who's saying that even mikula lechumra aminon, and therefore we would say that Mumar Ochel Nevelis Lahachis would be possible lahayid. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. But Rabbi Yossi is saying it would be kosher lahayid. Machlokes Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi, we pass on Rabbi Yossi. So again, even if we say that price is Rabbi Yossi, we should pass in that way. And therefore, why are we saying that the halacha is like Abaye, we asked the kasha on Abaye from a brisa. We said tiyufta, the Abaye tiyufta. Why are we passing like Abaye? Shiny awesome. Well, it's different when it comes to psule edus. This sasam lantana kraber because we have a stam mishnah like Reb Meir. We have a tana in a unattributed tana that is, or I think ultimately it ends up being a brisa like Reb Meir. I don't know. It's unclear because we quote it, I think, as a mishnah, but it's not like the mishnah we have. Maybe it's a different mishnah. Let me see something quick. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. But anyways, okay. I'll have to look it up. Maybe it comes from somewhere else. Okay, but let's just say we have a stam mishnah like Reb Meir. And therefore, generally, yes, machlokes Reb Meir and Reb Yossi would pass like Reb Yossi, but here we have a stam mishnah like Reb Meir, therefore we're going to pass like Reb Meir. And that is why we're going to say that the halach is like Abaye, that even a mumar ochel nevelos lahachis is pasul edus. I'm going to drink more coffee. Wow. Is it challenging Gemara? I don't know, it's slow. It's very interesting. These are important sugyas. Mumar ochel nevelos lahachis, mumar ochel nevelos te'avon, yal kigam. It's like a shtickle grind. Anyways. Where do we have a stam mishnah like Reb Meir that would essentially therefore be like Abaye that mumochan velis lachis is pasul edus? Kia de Bar Choma koto nafsha. Well, a person named Bar Choma killed somebody, or at least was suspected of killing somebody. Omer the Reish Gelusa of Abba Bar Yaakov. So Reish Gelusha says to Abba Bar Yaakov, Pok ayin ba. The Reish Galusa, the head of the exile of the community in Bavel, says to Abba Bar Yaakov, look, I don't want any murder in our society. I want you to investigate this case. Ivade koto, and if it's true that Bar Choma certainly killed somebody else, lichyu le'ene, gouge out his eyes, because this was already this wasn't during the time of the Beis Hamikdash, this was post Beis Hamikdash, so there were no capital punishment, right? There's no Dal Mises Bezdin, but so Reish Lakish says, look, the Reish Galusa says, look, I won't have any murder in my society. If it turns out that Reb Chama killed somebody, gouge out his eyes. Also, and sure enough, 2 witnesses came and testified against Bar Choma that he was guilty of murder. Also, but Bar Choma says, wait a second, I'm about to be killed. I see Trey Saide Asidu Bey Bechad Me'anach. So now Bar Choma brings his own witnesses, and these witnesses testify against one of the incriminating witnesses, right? The incriminating witnesses being those who are testifying against Bar Choma and arguing that Bar Choma is guilty of murder. Those are the incriminating witnesses. Now Bar Choma brings 2 witnesses and they testify against one of the incriminating witnesses. Chad Omar, and one of Bar Choma's 2 witnesses claims, Kamoididi Gonav Kovad Chushla, that I saw this incriminating witness steal a kav of peeled barley. V'chad Omar Kamoididi Gonav Kata de Bortio. And the other one testifies that this incriminating witness stole the handle of a spear. So basically what happens is they are disqualifying one of the incriminating witnesses for monetary offenses. The question is, now that he's been disqualified for monetary offenses, is he believed for capital, to testify about a capital case? Reb Meir would say he's disqualified for testifying about anything, whereas that's what Reb Meir would say. Whereas Reb Yossi would say, look, he can't testify about other financial, monetary cases, but he is still trusted by capital cases. So the shaila is, to be paskin like Reb Meir and say he can't testify in this case anymore, or like Rabbi Yossi, and he can testify in this capital case. So Amalei, so Rav Abba Bar Yaakov responds to Bar Chama, who brings these witnesses to incriminate one of the incriminating witnesses. This is Eidim Zomim. Eidim Zomim, it goes it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. It's a rabbit hole. These witnesses and those witnesses, and it's like, layers and layers and layers, and each pair of witnesses is made up of witnesses, and which of those witnesses are being zomim, disqualified, made into thieves? What's the implication for the other witnesses? My oh my. So Reb Abba Bar Yaakov responds to Bar Chama, and he says, why are you incriminating one of the incriminating witnesses? Right? Why are you coming to disqualify one of the incriminating witnesses? You're disqualifying him by dinei mamanis. Are you assuming that the law is like Reb Meir, that if you disqualify him for dinei mamanis, therefore he'll be unable to testify about you in your capital case? Reb Meir, Reb Yossi, halacha Reb Yossi. After all, if you have machlokas Reb Meir and Reb Yossi, we pass in like Reb Yossi. So incriminating this incriminating witness by dinei mamanis is not going to help you, because we pass in like Reb Yossi that he could still testify against you for dinei nefashis. Rabbi Yossi Amar, who's of dinei mamanis, kosher dinei nefashis. Rabbi Yossi says that if you're eid zom by dinei mamanis, you could still testify for dinei nefashis. Amar Papi, but then Rav Papi chimes in and he says to Reb Abba Bar Yaakov, Hanimile eicha de lo sasam lan tanak Reb Meir. 1 second. Okay. But we only would paskin like Reb Yossi against Reb Meir in absence of a Stam Mishnah like Reb Meir. But here we have a Stam Mishnah like Reb Meir. We still haven't said what this is. That's what we're going to do now. But here we have a Stam Mishnah like Reb Meir, and therefore we would pass like Reb Meir here, and therefore if we could disqualify one of the incriminating witnesses by dinei mamanis, then he will be unable to testify in this dinei nefashis case. What is this Stam Mishnah? If you're going to say from the following Mishnah, the Stam Mishnah is the following Mishnah. That anybody who can judge dinei nefashis can also judge dinei mamanis. Now the thing is, according to Rav Yossi, that statement is untrue. Because if you have an eid zomim by dinei mamanis, according to Rav Yossi, he is no longer trusted by dinei mamanis, but he can testify about dinei nefashis. So you can have a witness, or in this case a judge, for dinei who's kosher for dinei nefashis while being unfit for dinei mamanis. And we're saying kol aroi ladun dinei nefashis. Anybody who's fit to judge dinei nefashis is memei l'roi ladun dinei mamanis. So Mani, who's the author of this Mishnah, Ilema Reb Yossi, if you say it's Reb Yossi, ha'ika eid zomen de mammon. But what about the fact that you can have an eid zomen by mammon, the kosher dinei nefashis, who's kosher for dinei nefashis, and yet ufasl dinei mamanis, but he's possible by dinei mamanis. So it's untrue, according to Reb Yossi, to say that anybody who is fit for dinei nefashis is fit for dinei mamanis. You can have a scenario where somebody is unfit for dinei mamanis, and yet is fit for dinei nefashis, as Lav Reb Meir. So rather it must be that this is the opinion that we have a Stam Mishnah like Reb Meir, that if he's possible for dinei mamanis, he's also possible for dinei nefashis, which means that Memele, if he's kosher for dinei nefashis, he must also be kosher for dinei mamanis. But Mimai, we say, wait, hold up. How do we know that we are understanding and explaining this Mishnah correctly? How do we know that we're talking about in the context of Eidim Zomimin? And if you have anybody who's kosher for dinei nefashis, is memele kosher for dinei mamanis, in the context of, well, was he ever made an eid zomin before? Maybe that's not the lens through which we should be understanding this Mishnah. Dilma, perhaps, bipsula yuchsin koi. Maybe it's talking about yichus. Right, we're going to learn apparently in about a week. I think it's also been alluded to, maybe on Daf Yud Zayin, that to judge, to be in a Sanhedrin Ketana, in order to be able to judge dinei nefashis, you have to come from a solid lineage. Not just you yourself being a solid individual, but you have to have solid lineage. You cannot be a ger. You cannot be a mamzer. Gerim and Mamzerim are psulin from judging Dinei Nefashos. So we're talking about lineage over here. And therefore anybody whose lineage is qualified for, is valid for Dinei Nefashos, so Memele it's valid for Dinei Maminis. That's what it has nothing to do with Eidim Zomim. It has to do with lineage. If you have lineage that is valid for Dinei Nefashos, Memele it's valid for Dinei Maminis. Dilo Tema Achi. And I'll prove to you how we know that we're talking about lineage over here. Because otherwise, Seifa de Katani, because in the Seifa of that mission says, Yesh Roi Ladun Dinei Maminis, Vein Roi Ladun Dinei Nefashos. You can have somebody who is fit for Maminis, but not for Nefashos. You can have somebody who's fit for Maminis, but not for Nefashos. You can have somebody who's fit for Maminis, but not for Nefashos. Now, if we're viewing it from the lens of the machlokas between Reb Meir and Reb Yossi about Eidim Zomim, well then how can you have somebody who is right, where are we? How can you have a scenario where you could judge Dinei Maminis but not Dinei Nefashos? Everybody agrees that if you're in Eid Zomim, both Reb Meir and Reb Yossi agree that if you're in Eid Zomim by Dinei Nefashos, forget about it. You can't be trusted for Dinei Maminis. So Amai Ein Roi De'itzom B'Dinei Nefashos. Why would he be unfit for Dinei Nefashos? If we view it from the perspective of Machlokes of Meir and Reb Yossi, well, it must be because he's an Eid Zomim by Dinei Nefashos, therefore he's unfit for Dinei Nefashos. But if that's the case, Roi Lodin Dinei Maminis, how could he be fit for Dinei Maminis? Veha Divrei Kol Pasul. Everybody agrees that if you are an Eid Zomim by Dinei Nefashos, you're unfit for Dinei Maminis. So how can you have a scenario where you're unfit for Dinei Nefashos but fit for Dinei Maminis? Therefore, it must be that the Sefer is talking about Psul Yuchsin, i.e., you can have somebody who does not have valid yichus with regard to, in relation to Dinei Nefashos, but could nonetheless judge Dinei Maminis. And therefore, in the Reisha as well, when we say that you can have somebody who is fit for Din, that if you're fit for Dinei Nefashos, Memele, you're fit for Dinei Maminis, it's saying if your lineage is sufficient for Dinei Nefashos, Memele, it's sufficient for Dinei Maminus. Ela hacha kasasam lantana. Rather, the stam mission that we're looking for, like Reb Meir, is the following. It's not that we learn in the Mishnah. Elu and Apsulin. The following people are Pasule Edus. I guess Pasule Edus v'ladun. Hamasachik b'kubya umalvei beribis mafrichei yonim v'sochari shvis v'avodim. And avodim ze aklal. This is the rule called Edus she'eina isha ksheira law. Says the Mishnah, any testimony that a woman is invalid for, Afhein ein ksherin law, also they are invalid. So now money. Rabbi Yossi, if we can say this to Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Yossi says that these people who are basically violators on Maminis claims could still be believed for Nefashos. So now the thing is, so these people are believed by Edus Nefashos, but women would not be believed by Edus Nefashos, would not be valid witnesses for Edus Nefashos. So I think so money Ilem Rabbi Yossi, if you say it's Rabbi Yossi, Veika Edus B'Dinei Nefashos, She'eno Yishak Sherila. Vein Ksherila. According to Rabbi Yossi, these people who are violators of financial stuff could still be believed by Nefashos, yet an Isha is not ksher for Nefashos. Elav Reb Meir, it must be that this Mishnah is Reb Meir, who says that if you're invalid for Dinei Maminis, you're also invalid for Dinei Nefashos, and therefore these people are invalid across the board, just like an Isha is not ksher across the board. So we have a stam Mishnah like Reb Meir, and therefore if you're possible for Dinei Maminis, you're also possible for Dinei Nefashos, and therefore tying it back to Reb Chama, to Bar Chama, Bar Chama brought witnesses to invalidate the witnesses who were testifying against him, and they invalidated one of these witnesses against him by proving that he's a thief by Dinei Maminis. And therefore, based on Reb Meir, we would say that if he's possible for Dinei Maminis, he's also possible for Dinei Nefashos, and therefore he can't be testifying against Bar Chama. And Kam Bar Chama, so after a puppy basically saved the day. Rabbi Bar Chama got up, Nashke Akari kissed his feet, and accepted upon himself. Rabbi Chama accepted upon himself that he was going to pay the head tax for Rabbi Chama for the rest for a puppy for the rest of his life, because basically by saying that the halacha is like Reb Meir, Bar Chama was spared his eyesight. Wow. Okay, that was summed up. That was a important daf. I feel like maybe it was a little dry. It was a little bit of a grind, but it was important sugyas over there. We saw machlokes in Abaye and Rav when it comes to Eid Zomim L'Mafreyu Nifsal or Mikanu L'Habu Nifsal. Abaye says L'Mafreyu Nifsal. Rav says Mikanu L'Habu Nifsal. And we pass like Abaye. This is one of the examples of Yal Kigam, where we pass like Abaye, not Rava. And now a second example of Yal Kagam is everyone agrees that Mumar Ocha Nevelus L'Te'avon is going to be Pasul Le'edus because he can't be trusted. He can't control himself. The Shaila is what about Mumar Ocha Nevelus L'Hachis? Abaye says that he's Pasul Le'edus. Rava says that he is Kosher Le'edus. And in the end, basically, we paskin like Abaye here as well and say Mumar Ocha Nevelus L'Hachis is Pasul Le'edus. Peace out.